and welcome to Ellen Ruth Soap. I'm Ellen, and today we're doing hot process soap. I'm going to bring out 2 crock pots. I'm doing a big batch of hot process, and I'm still relatively new at hot process. I've only done this, a couple, maybe dozen times, so I don't consider myself a seasoned hot processor by any stretch of the term. But I have a great recipe, and I will share it down below to make a nice fluid hot process so you can get a beautiful swirl. And it's really interesting. I enjoy doing this when I do. It's very different as a cold process soap maker primarily. Hot process is really different, but I like it. So one of the reasons why I'm doing hot process today is because I'm going to be using an essential oil blend, a Thieves type. You have to be really careful. Thieves is a trademark with an essential oil company, but that particular blend of essential oils is what I'm doing. And in hot process, I go through the whole saponification process, cook the soap, and then add the fragrant oils after. And I feel like a little bit more of the scent and whatever essential oils do, I think it doesn't go through saponification, so maybe there's more in there. I don't know. I mean, I haven't really vetted this out from a chemical standpoint, but it sounds good to me. So that's what we're doing today. And for the color swirl, I'm going to be using this is hard to get, Australian Red Reef Clay. And somebody in my comments a while ago told me that they quit mining this. So I don't even know if they're still, it's hard to find, it's expensive, but I have some and I'm going to use it today. So if I can find a decent link, I will try to leave it down below, but the last few times that I've searched for it online, it's been hard to find just genuine Australian Red Reef Clay. It is super potent. A little goes a long way. So that's going to be the color swirl today. And again, I will share, the full recipe down below. We'll go through it step by step together. And so let me get my crock pots out and let's get everything ready to make a Thieves type, I have to be sure to say the type, essential oil, all natural hot process soap. All right, I've got both of my crock pots with all of the oils in here. The recipe is down below, but I'll tell you real quick what's in one crock pot and then double it over here because I'm making a double batch. So in this crock pot, we've got 12 ounces of coconut oil, 6 ounces of palm oil, 4 ounces of cocoa butter, 2 ounces of shea, 6 ounces of castor, and 30 ounces of olive oil. That's what's going on in both of these. And I've got the crock pots on high just to get the oils all melted up. After they're melted, I will add my dry ingredients. I've got my oats and kaolin clay back here that will blend on in here before we add the lye solution, which is an aloe vera lye solution. And then let me show you my little super fat cups that I have off to the side here. And as these are heating, I'm going to cozy these cups up to the crock pots so that the radiant heat will warm this up. I've got 3 tablespoons of unsweetened Greek yogurt. I've got an ounce of organic hempseed oil and an ounce of sodium lactate. And that's going to go in at the end for a super fat. So I've got 2 of these all off to the side here. I've got my essential oils measured off to the side. So right now we're just waiting for these oils to melt, and we'll come back when it's time to add the additives and the lye solution. All right, the oils are almost all the way melted here, so I'm going to go ahead and add my dry ingredients in here and get them, I'll blend it up in there, and then we'll add the lye. So here is my colloidal oats. I'm going to add 2 tablespoons to each pot, just because I love it that much. And the kaolin clay. I'm going to put the white kaolin clay in both pots, and then only one pot is going to get that Australian Red Reef Clay color. So 2 tablespoons of white clay. Let's get that all blended in, and then we'll be back with the lye. I've got my aloe vera lye solutions back here. It's 50% aloe vera juice, 50% distilled water. It does have cane sugar in here, as well as tussah silk fibers. So I'm just going to add each lye pot in and get them blended up. And we will start the cook down on our wonderful hot process soap here. But first we got to get the lye in here, get the lids on, and let it start cooking. So just going to blend up to emulsion before I pop the lids back on. it's been about 15 minutes. I do have my crock pots on high, and I'll probably turn them down to low after this first stir down. And I just threw some towels over these little vent holes just to keep all the moisture in the pots. But I'm going to go ahead and lift the lid off one at a time and give these a stir down. So let's take a look at what we've got going on in here. So it's kind of bubbling up on the sides, a little bit of separation. All of that is totally normal. Kind of looks like mashed potatoes, I guess, which is all part of the process. It's doing the cooking right now. So I'm going to stir this down and just let it keep cooking and check it, you know, about every 15 minutes or so. We'll take a peek in here and see how we're doing. It's been about another 15 minutes. We're definitely cooking away here. I'm going to give it another stir down. You know, you don't actually need to do all this stirring, but I am just so fussy over my soaps, and I just can't leave them alone. So that is my weakness. I tend to like to poke at stuff. So I'm going to give this a stir down here. Very fluid right now. And we'll come back. I'm going to stir this other crock pot, but we'll be back in about another 15. So this pot is cooked. Let's get into this one here and give it a stir down and do a pH test and see how we're doing. All right, we are both fully saponified or cooked. So now I'm going to add my little super fat cocktail into each of these. Again, this has the hemp seed oil, the yogurt, and the sodium lactate. One in each crock pot. I have all the crock pots are turned off now, and the radiant heat is keeping it nice and warm. So you just want everything warm when you're dealing with hot process soap. I've watched I'm a novice hot processor. There are other ladies out or people out there that have hot process down to a science. They are master hot processors. I am not there yet, so I am learning from the masters. And one of the tips that I've heard from people that are experienced hot processors is to work with warm equipment, warm additives at this stage, and that keeps everything fluid. The heat is what's working for you. And then also, I have a little spritzer of water that when I'm going to go stir the other pot, I just want to keep the top wet so it doesn't get crumbly. Let's see if you can see this one. We're just going to get that super fat stirred in here. And then I will get my Australian Red Reef Clay mixed into one of these. And I'm going to let this cool down for just a little bit before I put the essential oils in so that they don't just evaporate off with the heat, because these are very hot right now. So we'll just let it cool down just a little. And then we want to get it in the molds while it's still very warm and fluid. That's part of the trick of getting a nice swirl in a hot process, is working while everything's warm. All right, we got the additives stirred in. I'm going to spritz this with water. This is just water in here. And now I've got, this is about a teaspoon of Red Reef Clay in about 1 ounce of distilled water. So not much, it really doesn't take much. I'm just going to scoop a little in here to try and get all that color. It's so wonderful, hard to get. I mean, I don't even know if they're making Red Reef Clay anymore. So all I have left is what I've got. But it doesn't take much, and it will color this a really beautiful color. I mean, look at that. It's just a teeny bit, goes a long ways. Isn't that gorgeous? All right, here are my essential oils. We're going to go ahead and add those into each crock pot. Already pre-measured, makes it nice and quick to go. And again, if you want to calculate your essential oils, whatever blend or fragrant oil that you're using, you add up all of the oils that you're using, get a total number, and then find out the usage rate on the fragrance or essential oil that you're using. So, 2%, 3%, 5%, and that is what you use. All right. Got that. Oh, it smells good. This essential oil blend is so nice. It just has a very medicinal scent. You can definitely pick up the cinnamon and clove in there also. All right, now it's time to get these in the mold while we're nice and fluid. So let's get this. All right, I hope you can see my mold back here. I've got a big scoop that I'm just going to start plopping in here. Not very glamorous. It's the next day. This is all cooled off and ready to unmold, and I wanted to show you some of the extras that I made. I have a tiny little sample size loaf mold that I put in some of the extra batter, so I'll be cutting this into bars, and also I scrape out the bowls. I don't want to waste any, and I gathered it all together, made a little soap ball, and we'll do a lather test with that. And then I had soap flowers. I already unmolded a couple just to make sure they were ready to unmold. So I'll show you what we've got here. Nothing goes to waste. You can scrape those bowls down and just use it all. So pretty soap flowers, and we will get into the big mold here also. But aren't those cute? All right, let's get into the big mold and see how this is. All right, let's get in here. It was fluid enough to where I was actually able to get a little bit of a swirly top on here. It's still a little rustic, as a hot process will be, but I think that's quite beautiful. And I just love the color of that Australian Red Reef Clay. So pretty. It smells fantastic. Let's get it out of the mold and see how that spoon swirl came out inside. This whole thing took, maybe an hour to get to the final cook and everything with melting the oil. So it was, a pretty quick soap project. I just really am fascinated by hot process soap making. It's so different than cold process, and I really enjoy it. With the lovely Olga, and it's time to cut these into loaves. And let me tell you a little something that's going on here. These are very sticky, I want to say gooey, so I am going to get these cut into bars and let them sit probably for several days to to let the air surface dry on them because I did work with super fat and full water and everything because I wanted to keep it fluid to swirl it. Well, that means it's a wetter soap today. So I will not be beveling or stamping these today, which is fine. They will just sit and wait patiently for them to firm up. And this darker color here is still, it's not gelling, but it just needs to dry out. It will turn a nice creamy beige color. So that is what's going on with this hot process soap, and I have found this to be true. If you want a hot process fluid enough to swirl, you got kind of gooey bars for a few days, so just let them sit. I've also had this happen with cold process soap when I have a very slow moving fragrance. They sometimes are not ready to be beveled and stamped the next day, so you just wait a few days and they firm up. So again, the darker areas will all turn to this nice creamy beige color when they're done, and of course I will come back and bevel and stamp and show you guys that. But anyway, gooey bars, I don't know what to say, but isn't that swirl gorgeous? I am so tickled with how these came out. And the essential oil, it's a very subtle sort of medicinal cinnamony scent. I think it's beautiful, that essential oil blend. And you have to be careful with the trademark on that. So, you know, it's good to be respectful of trademarks and just know when somebody has a designer label or a name trademark. Just be aware of that when you are making a product or naming a product. It's always good to keep that in mind. So let's get on to the next loaf. So again, for a hot process, I think that top is pretty nice. You know, it's one of those things where it just is what it is in the hot process world. Is it just dries out so quickly when you get it in the mold that you're not going to get a, you know, really fancy top. But I think these are beautiful, especially once you cut them into bars. I think they look great. So hot process is cool. Let me know if you give this recipe a try, if you like it, or if you are even a hot process soap maker at all, if you've even tried it. If you haven't tried it and you're a cold process soap maker, I challenge you to give it a shot. It's so different, but it's very cool. And it's kind of rewarding. It just keeps things fresh, you know, mix it up a little. I think these swirls are pretty. Oh yeah, I like that. Although, I mean, I do like the spoon swirl, but I think next time I'll go back to my hanger swirl. These are beautiful though. Last time I did hot process, I did a hanger swirl, and I think you get a little bit more like round swirls. But I think these are gorgeous. So anyway, I hope you give it a try. So I'm going to finish cutting up these into bars, and then we'll come back and do a lather test. And then I will come back in a few days to do the beveling and the stamping. Probably about 2 or 3 days. I think that's all it's going to take to get these nice and firm enough for that. All right, here's my little scrapings soap ball. And let's give it a lather test. I know this soap has such a beautiful lather. I really love it. It's very creamy. I don't know if you can pick it up, but it just bubbles right away. There we go. So it's kind of dense when you first do it, but then if you add a little water, big bubbles come out. It's just beautiful. Nice creamy lather. That yogurt in there, the hemp seed oil, just feels wonderful on your skin. So I also wanted to show you this Australian Red Reef Clay. It's red. And here's a white washcloth. So if you have a white washcloth and use it, it's going to come off on there. Now it will come out in the wash, but just know that that red clay has a lot of oxides in it, and so I wouldn't use a white washcloth with this. I would probably use a colored washcloth, but it will come out in the wash. But I just wanted to show you that, FYI. So there it is. We'll be back in a few days to do the beveling and stamping. I hope you enjoyed today's video.